Every year the Academy Awards come around, and every year there are plenty of complaints. Sometimes it's that some films shouldn't have been nominated where other films should have. The Big Short over Ex Machina for Best Picture? Really? This year it also has to do with a lack of diversity in the acting categories. But if come February 28th you're still upset, as some people no doubt will be, just remember that it could be a lot worse. There have been plenty of big upsets, particularly regarding Best Picture winners in the past. And here are the worst. Not necessarily bad movies, but movies that shouldn't have received the honor that they did. Number 10. Argo, 2012. If you're Canadian, you probably had at least some problem with historical inaccuracy of this film about the Iranian hostage crisis. It's good, but considering the mission portrayed was nicknamed the Canadian Caper, it should have been more honest. And it beat out much better films like Les Miserables, Life of Pi, and Amour. Number 9. Driving Miss Daisy, 1989. In the year that Do the Right Thing, Spike Lee's powerful study of modern racial relations came out and was snubbed, the Oscar was given to this film, which also dealt with racial relations, but in an incredibly subdued and more conservative way. That being said, I think the real winner that year ought to have been Dead Poets Society. Number 8. Rocky, 1977. A lot of people love this classic sports movie, and it is really good. But it's certainly not better than Martin Scorsese's brilliant Taxi Driver, or the underrated masterpiece Network, director Sidney Lumet and writer Paddy Chayefsky's dark satire of television culture and mass media. Number 7. Tom Jones, 1963. Admittedly, Tony Richardson turned Henry Fielding's lackluster 1749 book into a decent enough film. But I'm sorry, Albert Finney prancing around, womanizing, and occasionally breaking the fourth wall is enough to upend other films of that year, like the grand epic How the West Was Won, Sidney Poitier's fantastic Lilies of the Field, or even the underrated caper film, Charade. Number 6. The Great Ziegfeld, 1935. One of my favorite films, 1935's A Tale of Two Cities, was nominated for Best Picture that year. But it lost to this self-glorifying celebration of Hollywood glamour. It was a show-off film with little substance in story or characters. Oh yeah, and it beat Frank Capra's seminal comedy Mr. Deeds Goes to Town too. Number 5. Out of Africa, 1985. The year that Back to the Future, The Breakfast Club, The Color Purple, and Brazil came out, the Oscar was given to this real-life account of living in Africa for over a decade. And it really feels like it's over a decade with how slowly the film progresses and how little it keeps your interest. Number 4. The Greatest Show on Earth, 1952. This was a Cecil B. DeMille film, so it had no excuse to be boring. The story of a traveling circus was much too long and much too bland. The one thing it had going for it was Jimmy Stewart playing a clown. Its competition, Western classic High Noon, the very enjoyable Ivanhoe, and one of the greatest musicals ever made, Singing in the Rain. Number 3. Crash, 2005. This movie is fine. It explores modern racism in LA, showing prejudices multiple people from multiple walks of life have. But it's definitely trying too hard and pandering for an Oscar, which is painfully obvious in a number of scenes. And going up against movies like Brokeback Mountain, Capote, Memoirs of a Geisha, and Munich, is Crash really better than any of those? Number 2. Shakespeare in Love, 1998. Just reminding you that this Elizabethan rom-com won Best Picture. To this day, people are still upset that Saving Private Ryan was robbed. Why award one of the best war films ever made when you have Gwyneth Paltrow faking an English accent with the lesser-talented Fiennes brother? And the number 1 worst Best Picture winner is How Green Was My Valley, 1941. This film doesn't deserve to win an Oscar under any circumstances. The story about a Welsh mining town hit by depression is uninteresting, drearily paced, and rife with terrible Welsh accents. Only one actor actually is Welsh, and you can tell. And if that's not enough, this was a film that beat Citizen Kane, which many consider to be the greatest film ever made. It is by far the Academy's most embarrassing moment, and is always brought up as pretty damning evidence that the Oscars don't always determine quality.